Welcome to the third SLT, Ask Us Anything SLT. For anybody who I haven't met in the room, I'm Emer Riley. I am the Director of People and Culture, and I think I've met everybody, which is really nice. For anybody online who I haven't met, really nice to meet you, and delighted that you could join us online, and sorry that you may not have had the opportunity to join us here in person. But hopefully the way that we set it up, you can be as participative as you want to be. There I go, my first words I got wrong. As you want to be. We have a Q&A set up for anybody online, so you can just pop in questions as we go. For anybody who's here in the room, we're absolutely open to hearing any questions from you. And we also have a number of questions have been submitted to us, which we will go through ourselves. Before we get into the questions that we have, what we're going to do is we're going to each take an opportunity to introduce ourselves, just to tell you a little bit about what we do. And then also they're going to tell us something, we're going to say something very interesting about ourselves. Now, Shona and Evan are both giving me dagger looks. She didn't prepare me for that one.
You're the chance to prepare yourself.
Only messing up. No, we don't have to say anything interesting about ourselves. So just to say, look, again, thanks very much everybody for coming. I'll start with my little intro. I'm Emer Riley. I'm Director of People and Culture. I've been in the organisation now about 2.5 years. I was here actually in this room. You're very welcome. Come on in. Natasha, good to see you. I'm in the organisation about 2.5 years, and I was here about a year ago. Simon very kindly set up this room really well for us, and we did a launch of the People and Culture strategy. We had a number of people, so it's great to see some faces coming back to talk to us again. What we're doing today is an Ask Us Anything for an SLT for the senior leadership team. The reason being is on the back of our employee engagement survey, which we have just done a new one on, there was a lot of opportunity for connecting with the senior leadership team. And a lot of people telling us about internal communications weren't as good as they wanted them to be, nor was there opportunity to have that upward communication. So this is just one little way which we hope to try and improve that. And just also, I suppose, from our, as you can see, us not being prepared in terms of our something interesting, just to show, we are absolutely open, transparent and willing to hear from every employee in terms of any opinions or suggestions, anything that we can do to improve our organisation. So that's really why we're here today. I'm absolutely so proud to be part of Rehab Group. I'm really proud to be the Director of People and Culture. One of the things that threads us all together and connects us is the people who work here and the service users and learners that we support. So it's all about people. So it's absolutely a joy to come. I was talking to a few people in the services today. Somebody said it's such a joy to work here, and I bounce into work every day. I feel like that as well. So it's a real privilege to have the role of People and Culture and to be as part of the senior leadership team. Working with my colleagues on the senior leadership team, people are really at the centre of everything that we do. So one of the reasons that we're here talking to you is to make sure that we know and we hear from you about what are things that are important. And we are absolutely open, as I said, to hearing it. But also we'll tell you about things and can say, that's not something that we can do. That's not in our gift. That's not in our control. We'll absolutely be clear and open and honest with you. So that's People and Culture. Beat that?
I'm not going to even try. I'm Kevin Gregory. I'm the Director of Enterprises and Employment Employability here in Rehab. I'm with the organisation a few months longer than Emer, and I actually started in a different role, the Strategic Performance and Business Development with Verna there. And then after a few months, actually took on the enterprise role. And like Emer says, it's the organisation is just, it's amazing. Again, it's a brilliant organisation to be part of. And we've gone as part of the SLT as well in the last couple of years. We've kind of gone at different stages, visiting different locations, and I just get energized on the commitment and the dedication that our staff show every day and what the work they do. And I know I couldn't do that work, so I'm always impressed by the work and the level of commitment that is there. I'm really impressed. So I think that's thank you to all of you. I know that's not what this is about. It's all about Ask SLT, but it's going to take that opportunity to say it because it is amazing. And likewise, the enterprise team as well. We're there. We have our staff there working with people with disability, and obviously other people as well. Type of thing, working together as colleagues. And myself and Laura, the CEO, were out there today in enterprise in Ballybrit, and it's been the third time there. But every time I go there again, it's like the work that we do. It's on par with any other organisation. Really is, and it's something that I'm proud of, and I just wish that the organisation can be more proud of and feel that they can talk more about it, because it is such an amazing achievement what we do there, because we are working commercially and we are competing commercially and we are delivering, and we have as a company, particularly in Galway, it's a company there that they couldn't do what they do unless we are there. And it's brilliant, and the team that they are so committed to everything that we do, and dedicated to the staff as well. This parallel to that delivery to our customer, it's also delivering for our staff too, and it's a really strong ethos there. So it's great to be part of it. And there's something that's interesting because we don't find interesting. I'm an accountant. So.
And he duty says I'm an accountant. Sorry about that. Forgive me this time.
Okay, so I'm Shona Logan King. Feels a bit odd in the room here because I think most people know who I am. But for anyone that doesn't, so I'm the director of quality and governance, and it is actually really nice to be doing this here today because I talked about dedication. 23 years, Kevin. 23 years. So I am 23 years with the company this year, and you don't stay with a company for 23 years if you don't fully believe in what we do and how we do it. And for me, I love that to be working in quality and governance now because my focus is solely on trying to do things as best we can, and trying to support people to do that. So for everyone here, my background, I started out in operations and was in service delivery for years, and then moved into community support, and then moved into this role. So I have a huge interest in how we could always do things better. The quality and governance team is all about, health and safety, clinical services, safeguarding, regulation. But at the heart of everything we do is around continuous improvement and how we always look to see what we can do more of, differently, better, and always trying to be kind of moving, I suppose. We should never stand still. And even looking around the room, we haven't stood still. We have kind of evolved in all of that time. So it's really good to be here today from that perspective. Thank you, Sharon. I have nothing interesting to
say, absolutely always. And actually, in the room, they probably know all those interesting things.
In the room, don't know.
Yeah.
I've nothing additional.
Yeah. So it's Ask SLT. Ask us anything. Would anybody who is in the room, or first of all, ask us a question? Anyone like to pose anything? Anybody online also? And I'm just turning my head, so apologies. Anybody online on the Q&A section? Or will I kick off straight away with some that I've already received in? Okay, I'm going to start with some of the ones I received in, and apologies, I've just got my phone so that I can just keep an eye on a few things. So now, Kevin and Shona, as soon as I've got the piece of paper there now, it's going to give questions to them. Okay, so, and in fairness, really appreciative of the level of questions that we got in. at the start. So from people, it's really, really good for us to have them. So Shona, I might start just with some of the service pieces, if that's all right. So there was a lot of kind of questions in from individuals around services and changing services. And in particular, sorry, I'm not going to call out, we had one which was any new changes to services that we should be flagging to people at this stage.
Yeah. So this, again, it's kind of back to that, there's a lot going on at any given time. And even, I mean, last year we tried to slow down our growth a little bit to try and focus on making sure we have everything kind of settled. But even within that, we are always evolving. So we have lots going on. There are loads of what we call service enhancements around the country. I took in with Berna and her team yesterday and with Audrey to kind of get a sense of some of the things that are going on. And in every model of service that we have new things happening. So in our day services, we have, we've lots of expansion, we've lots of growth in services. We also have lots of new models of service. And one of the things that's a really interesting one, particularly in care over the last while, is our focus on older persons with disabilities as well, and how we can better support people that are aging in our services as well. So that's one really interesting one to watch, I think, and that's about how we deliver our services, where we deliver them, and the specific supports people might need. We've got there's lots of new respite services, but there's a new children's respite in Sligo. We've lots of increases to our respite services around the country. And then we have a couple of new residential services and again extensions to residential services. So we've lots going on. In NLN, again, new models and different models of service. We're always trying to evolve in NLN, look at our programs, look at our centres, look to see how we might do things differently if there are new areas of interest. But we were also successful recently in Create 3 funding, so have developed a new project or service called Dat Works. And if anyone remembers kind of a different project we had over the last few years, it was called Dat Central, and it's about using assistive technology to support people in their everyday lives. And then Dat Works is around using assistive technology to support people in employment. So really nice projects going on. And I suppose with all of these, what we want to do is learn from them and then see if we can use those models elsewhere and see what works well. So lots going on.
Yeah, and also on the enterprise side too as well. We're trying out new things there as well. And particularly probably talk about it a bit later on maybe about the work ready piece as well, where we look at placing people with a disability with other organisations as part of the work experience, with the idea being paid work experience, the idea being that they then become permanent employees of that company. And also within each of the different locations that we have too, we are commercial, we're constantly looking to see what are the different ways can we actually generate income. So one of the ones that we've started in Dublin and we're now rolling out to Cork is, for example, the recycling side of things, is we get this polystyrene, these big, when you get a fridge or something like that, you get this foam polystyrene. So what we do is we take that and we shrink it down and then we sell it back into to be reused for things like insulation panels and things like that. So we kind of started that type of thing. And everywhere we're also looking at doing where we take in laptops, and if the organisation that is disposing of the laptops is prepared to, we will then get rid of the hard disk, we shred the hard disk so no data is lost, put in a new hard disk, set up a new laptop and then sell it on. So it generates income then for our enterprises as well. So we're always constantly trying to think of new ways of developing business there as well.
And I've seen, Kevin, actually some of the team have actually advertised through, so us as employees, just if you are thinking about upgrading your laptop or anything like that, the guys are actually selling them into ourselves and from a personal perspective.
But my own last year for one of my kids for university last year as well.
So keep a laptop for your kids going to university because they're going to break them. Or lose them. Actually, just as you've moved to enterprises, we have a question in around learning more about our social enterprise and employability, and in particular about how we might advocate for employment opportunities for service users or students into enterprises.
Yeah. There's personal enterprises kind of two streams really. the way we see this. So, as I mentioned there, there's that work ready piece where what we are trying to do there, as I mentioned, is we're looking basically, we take, it's only was piloting at the moment, where we would take people with disability and we would place them with a company, and we would support them then for 6 months. The person, we would then invoice the company for that support piece. And the person, it will be paid then through the Department of Social Protection. So that's the way that scheme works. But we are piloting this only in the last month that we've got this off the ground. So we're trying to see how it's going. We're kind of working in Dublin at the moment, and we're looking to see where else can we do it. Because obviously we can't, if we can just support people, we can't stretch ourselves too far. We actually have limited resources. So it is something that we're really interested in pushing out and talking to people about. Within and the way I would see that working is we would take people from different who are work ready, clues in the name, I suppose, that they are ready to work. But also I'd like to see it dovetailing with what we do in enterprises and also NLM as well, where people will come maybe out of NLM and they might be work ready as well, and we can maybe place them as well. Or if not, maybe there might be a route in through, we haven't got there yet in this piece, will come through into enterprises. So people work in enterprises and get used to that work environment, because there is that change for people. We've found we do link in with NLN in different places. And one thing, for example, somebody from NLN might be not used to the work environment, not used to maybe, no, you can't actually just sit up and go take a coffee break whenever you want, because you're actually at a production line. So you actually have to stay there until the particular break is, things like that. So people need to learn about that. So getting used to that environment, and then moving then, ideally that would then see people moving on from there then into the work ready place. So they're kind of used to the environment and can then move in with the work ready. So there's lots of different things that we're looking at doing there. I think we'll reference to advocating there as well.
Advocating for,
So so we are really actively advocating on the particularly on the work ready side of things with the government departments as a way to funding this. So we just the end of last year, the Department of Social Protection stepped in and agreed that they would do some funding of that role of those activities, which is going to be a game changer. It'll make it affordable for the employers and really good for the person with disability. So we're on a scheme now, which normally is about you have to give you at least 30 hours to avail of this funding from the Department of Social Protection, but the individual can avail it. We have made the case, and the department have actually listened, which is unusual. I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, but now after 20 hours, people will get this support. So it's not 30 hours anymore. So it's a huge change. And that's thankfully because of, I suppose, the work that we have been doing. We've got Rehab, have got credibility in the department. So we leverage that credibility, and we have the name for the work that we do. So there's lots of different things like that we do. There's other things that we're in the departments, different departments' ears as well, about to try and change the way things are procured. For example, where the government will procure contracts to allow for social enterprises and people like social for rehab enterprises to tender for those types of things. There's lots of different angles that we're trying to get in there to get that support on the office. So,
is there any apps you'd have?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the more politicians that hear about these needs, the better. But we're in. It's great. We got in. We sat in with the Department of Social Protection and the Minister, Mr. Cleary as well. Fantastic. And we invite politicians to our different locations. We had politicians into our Port location last year as well. We're going to be doing one in Cork as well this year. And it's what's crucial from talking to politicians is that they're hearing it locally. So if you are and your service users, your families, yourselves on the doorsteps when they're knocking for elections, when you're sending letters in, that's what they listen to at the end of the day. That's absolutely what they listen to. And then tell them you need to talk to this Minister of Social Protection to change this. And you'd kind of think that it doesn't actually register, but actually there's enough people doing it, it does register, and they always respond at the end of the day because there's a groundswell. You can see what happened with the SMAs there during the week. It's the same type of thing. So everybody keeps chipping away. You do get there in the end, and it does make a big difference. And Emer Costello on the advocacy side of things has been doing a huge job of this. So if there's a particular area that you're interested in, do touch base with Emer, and Emer will give you great advice about how to word a letter or whatever it is that needs to be done. And Emer can then coordinate with all the things that are going on across the organisation as well. So kind of, because we have one unusual that we have that national footprint. So we can actually have loads of politicians from everywhere going in talking to the Minister of Education, the Minister of Enterprise, Minister of Health. We are unusual that way. We really should be using that. So I think that comes from the ground up.
Thanks, Kevin, for that. Do you just shout if there's any questions either online or, and Rosie, if there is any coming in, maybe you just let me know. Or indeed in the room, if anybody wants to go for voice, we're very happy to hear it. I'll take one next just to give you a break, just in case you think that I'm, not doing any of the answering. And actually, there's quite a lot of people questions that have come in. But one of the first ones is actually around our engagement survey. And somebody has referenced that a number of employees didn't participate in the engagement survey and the reason being, now that this individual has said to us, is that they didn't feel it would have an impact. And is there any way that we can think about capturing their feedback? So the first thing I want to say is around that employee engagement survey, and I'm sitting here with my SLT colleagues, and I hope that you all know in terms of how serious that we take that employee engagement survey. We're absolutely invested in doing it as a listening exercise, but it's not the only listening exercise we want to do, but it's a real opportunity for every employee to just go through a number of 70 questions and just give their own views, with nobody else looking over your shoulder, nobody else, no peer pressure, no nothing, real opportunity to give honest feedback about where you're at. So the last time we did it was 2014, where did that come from? 2024 in June. And we left it for 18 months before we did the next one. After 2024, we embarked on a lot of things, and we're going to continue doing them. So even though we've our new survey, we're kind of saying, look, we still want to make sure from an SLT perspective, we're getting out to services, we're talking to people, we're listening. That's going to be something we'll continue to do. So every time we're out, there's an opportunity for people to talk to us. But really importantly, what I would say for about anybody who didn't get involved in the survey, there is an opportunity now over the next kind of 6 to 8 weeks. What we'll be doing is there's going to be communications at a local team level about the results for your area. So if you're based in this region, you'll have regional results, whether you're in National Learning Network or indeed you're in Rehab Care. The regional managers will be supporting the managers in terms of delivery of those, and what it is for each team then to make a decision around what are the actions that are really going to make a difference to yourselves. So it's that opportunity. If you felt you didn't want to say anything at that time, then kind of go and you can look at the results and say, well, actually, that's not the things that's most important. These are the things that will really help us. And it's really up to me at local teams to steer that. So that's the real opportunity there. Alongside that, we have 4 areas which we're focusing on from an organisational perspective. One of them is on health and wellbeing, in particular employee wellbeing. If you've seen our business plan for this year, and I know sometimes you can feel they're a bit lofty, but our business plan this year is it's all about employee experience. And as part of that, wellbeing really, really important. We set up a wellbeing committee, open for anybody to get involved. We've got lots of people from across Rehab Care and National Learning Network, and indeed for some of the corporate functions and enterprises. There are enterprises driving a lot of the initiatives involved in that. So if you didn't have the opportunity for voice within the survey and didn't want to do it, absolutely you can get involved at the organisational level, or indeed taking some of those things and making them real locally. We're also looking at career progression at an organisational level. And again, that was another thing that we said we were going to concentrate on this year. We've done little bits, but probably if I was to talk to everybody and people say, what the survey's telling us is, I don't know how to have a successful career in rehab. And we need to make that clearer, and we need to make it easy for people to know how to do it and give them the pathways to do it. So if I want to do learning, how do I do that and connect that in? So again, that's another piece. Anybody again wants to get involved, real opportunity to do that. The third area that I'm now trying to recall on the top of my head, which is employee value and recognition. How could I forget that one? Always the real core one. We had a project running on that last year, and we're going to continue on that. As you know, you've all probably participated in your employee recognition awards. We'll continue to do that, but we know we need to bring that locally this year. So again, we've a project team organisation. Anybody want to get involved? Any suggestion? We'll put out feedback, opportunity to give us that through either through focus groups or indeed actually directly in. And then the final one, which there's going to be a big kind of movement on this year, which will be developing our strategy. So for next year, as you know, this is the last year of delivering our future strategy. So next year we have a brand new, fresh strategy, building on what we've done already, but given an opportunity to look forward into 2031. And every time I say that, I get a bit scared. In 2031, gives an opportunity to look forward. But as was done, and Shona, in fairness, ran that the last time, you have real huge engagement across the organisation from employees. Get them involved. Let's listen to what it is, how we're going to shape that going forward. So absolutely we'll be doing that exercise or a similar exercise to that, and probably some lessons learned from that. Opportunity for us to not just listen, but also then to connect back to, well, this is what your listening shaped, and this is how it's following through into the strategy.
And I think that's a big thing, Emer, for a couple of things. The strategy, firstly, we'd in around 1,600 employees the last time feed into the strategy, so it really was about listening. I'm conscious, though, and you've mentioned a few times about listening as part of this, and we do, but also we've been doing. I think that's the thing. I think, but with an organisation this size, the doing is at a few different levels, and that's really important for everyone to feel it. So at SLT level, we have all of these projects, so we've heard all of the feedback, we've listened to it, we go back and forth on it when we meet as well, and trying to think what we think we could do. But then we need everyone to suggest what needs to happen within that, and then it needs to happen at all the different layers across the organisation for it to actually be felt by everybody. So, you know, what's important to me in relation to value and recognition might be different to what's important to Simon or to Laura, you know, so everyone has something different in that, and it's really important. And at SLT, we mightn't be able to get to every single person, but that's why it's really important that in your region you look at it and then figure out what your action plan is there. So it's really important to us. And it was really important after the last survey, and certainly after the last strategy, that engagement piece. It was really important that we respond and we do something about all of the different areas. And then I think the next piece for us, I think the learning is about making sure that people feel it, because one of the things we sometimes do, we do a lot of things and we might fall down in how we communicate that back to people. So that's something we really need to focus on this time.
Okay. So thanks for that question. And again, anybody who wants to talk to me about employee engagement, I can talk to you all day, every day about it. So really, really happy to do so. Kevin mentioned twice he was an accountant. So I think in fairness, any funding questions that come in, they should be directed to Kevin, shouldn't they, in fairness? But it's really interesting. That's one of the things, seems to be one of the hot topics for people who submitted questions to us around actually what's going to be the change to the funding. So one of the things is anything that we can do in terms of support lobbying for increased funding.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I suppose, kind of referred to earlier on too, that a piece that's coming from the ground up, that really is what it's about. Because again, with the SNA's piece, you saw the impact that had on people getting together and being prepared to protest, and behind all that's just a surface piece. Behind all that, people really can actually writing to their councillors, their ministers, their TDs. They're all writing. There's a big campaign around it, and that's what it is. Politicians see that there is that interest. They respond. So whether it's funding, it's the exact same piece. And we have been doing a lot of work, particularly around the cost of disability piece as well. A huge amount of work through even costs of the head office. And we constantly, so when it comes up to budgets, for example, budget time prior to the budget, there's a paper, big document that Emer would gather, not just the cost of disability, all the other elements in there, information from enterprises, information from them, from food, from care, and put it all together in a coherent package saying, this is what the government needs to do. It's cost so much as well. So this is what's going to cost the government to do these things. There's a lot of work goes into it. And that's one of the reasons why we have credibility, because we say that we have been talking to people who are service users, our staff who are on the ground. We can actually put figures on these things as well and say, this is what it's going to cost, this is what's needed, this is why it's needed. So we have that credibility, and we do use it. It can only be reinforced by people on the ground contacting their ministers, their TDs, their councillors again and again. And Emer would be more than happy for, people want to reach out to her, so that would be the cost outside, as opposed to Emer Riley here. Emer has enough other things to be doing. But Emer Costello.
It's just Emer Costello. That's why now she'll be like,
she was really, she's really good. That she really, if people reach out to her, she will respond and help coordinate the performance of the academy.
I would say as well, just in relation to funding, obviously, in addition to all of that, we are also always, and lots of people in this room are engaging with the HSE, engaging with ETBs, with SOLAS, and that's at a local level, regional level, and national level. And we also are part of a number of umbrella bodies, and they do a lot of advocacy, and we are plugged into all of those. So I suppose every angle we can come at this, we do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the regular meetings with the CFOs, it's always discussed and say, we need more funding, and this is the level of funding we get, and it is not enough. It's discussed all the time.
Right. One of the other questions on funding, and Shona, maybe this is a bit more to you, but Kevin, in your accountant, if that comes in, for funding not being, why is it not being changed to individualised funding? And I know there's been a lot of conversation about that.
Yeah.
So is it being changed? Is it not being changed? Why is it not being changed?
It's certainly something that's been advocated and has been trialled and piloted and is being reviewed. So we've heard about things like personalised budgets over the last number of years, and like that's in effect in some places, but it hasn't been rolled out across the board. I would suggest some of that's because there is a cost to that, and I think from the funders' perspective, it's a much more costly service, and people will potentially get less than they get. So I think they're kind of caught between initially offering it to people who might try it and see how it works and try and figure out where the problems might be with that. I know some people for whom that works really successfully, and I suppose the other side of that then as well, in terms of individualised funding, there are efficiencies to group in funding, and that's why some of the funding structures were set up as they are now. When you try and dismantle that and offer from person to person, essentially, they would get less and less. It's potentially harder. Services have to be run differently. So there's a lot, I think, there's a lot to get to that point. And then there are some people for whom managing their own budgets or individualised funding isn't an option. That's not something they would need a lot of support. So there's a lot of things to work through, and I think that's why it's been piloted. But certainly, there's scope for so much more. And I think from a service provider perspective, and across all of the Section 39s, we've advocated for different funding models and more flexible funding for years, and we'll continue to do so. But I suspect that's why it's taken some time, and it's kind of come out in a bit of a piecemeal way, and and it's from every which side. I mean, even as an organisation, when we sat back to look at it and how it would work, it's not that straightforward. But that's not to say we shouldn't do it, and it's not to say we shouldn't try. So, but I suspect it will take a bit of time.
I think the principle behind it makes a lot of sense. Like, absolutely, I think it's people at independence, but it is that's what even Sean referring to. Like, it is from an accountant's perspective, it's a nightmare. Because how do you actually?
Sorry for laughing at Kevin and the accountant.
It's a bit lonely because I'm an accountant. Because you just, how do you, because you have to report back on how this money has been used, and you have every single person has their own their budget, and they're spending a piece here and a piece there type of thing. It's a huge undertaking on that kind of perspective. But like it's the way to go down the line. Like, it's part of giving people that independence. I think self-owned. I think it's really important. A lot to get there.
There's a couple of questions here around how we use our intranet, SharePoint, and things like that. So I'm going to bring them together and maybe answer them quickly, and show if there's anything you want to add into them. One is around good old webinars or workshops on health education, etc., which put out by Rehab, and I'm assuming that centrally in terms of sort of functions. Could we upload to SharePoint? Just to say we do. So maybe we're not as good at making sure that are easy to find, or So I think one of the things, in fairness to the communications team has been working on is developing that intranet site. And I know definitely one of the times when the last time I was sitting in this room, I said, guys, let us know if things aren't working. Because sometimes when we're looking at stuff, whether it's from the people and culture side or from anyone else who is in that supporting functions, we think it makes sense. And if you don't think it makes sense, tell us. You can't find stuff. We don't know you can't find it unless you tell us that you can't. So we'll absolutely, one of the things around the internet, we do everything and we put it there. We need to find ways to make sure that it's easier to find, and absolutely that's something that we can do. In the same way, there's another question in relation to programs bank in the day services framework. We use upload further resources.
Yeah.
Do you want to take that one?
So this is about, I suppose, expanding on what's in the programs bank for day services. Because what's there is really good, really helpful, and it's certainly a really good starting point, but needs to be built out on. So no, absolutely, I think that's a really good point, and I suppose we will continue to do that. And that's part of the operations team. The day services team had taken on board that piece of work. So I think starting point, and definitely the more we can add to that, because again, it makes sense if someone is running a program about budgeting, there's no point in 12 people all designing the same program. So if we can hold whatever we can there, we're good.
Just on that, can plans with the AI to really prop that up a bit, supporting the programs? I know locally we should invest in up down, talking about it recently, but is that a part of the plan?
Could I suggest I am absolutely the wrong person to talk
I
about?
represent your question. I know more.
Firstly, there is an AI,
Yeah.
AI is being looked at in the organisation, how we use it. I think we know that we underuse it, and that there's huge scope for how it could be used. However, also has to be done. But obviously it has to be done safely, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong as well. And I think but it's like everything. I mean, especially for things like designing programs, like even with my own team, we started to look at how we can use it more to, if I what about quality domains, one of the quality domains is around being efficient in what we do, and I think AI has a big role to play in that. So yes, but then there'll be the flip side of how we make sure everything is accurate and fact checked, and where our information goes. And so there are a few bits there. Now I say that like I have the first notion of how, like, where the information goes. I really don't. It's not my area, but it's something we're definitely exploring, but it has to be done safely.
We do have, so we do have some, we're kind of exploring at the moment, we're kind of playing around with, some people are playing around with AI at the moment to see, and it is within the rehab environment. It doesn't go outside, so I think, so we do need to be really careful about that. Absolutely.
There's working groups currently, there's an AI working group.
Yeah. So there's huge potential in AI.
Yeah.
I know I've kind of played around with myself a couple of times, and it's been really useful to do some heavy lifting for some basic things type of thing, and then but like Sean saying, you got to check it. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think the bank programs is a really good example of where it would be very useful. Yeah.
Just even like around other service models that are being created, I suppose, but there are lots of different models of service around the organisation.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot of learning already there, and that it needs to be shared and replicated and moved to, whatever, like tweeted, whatever, but replicated across them to find out information, to find out where they are and what's happening with them.
And actually
I was going to repeat that just in case people online didn't hear you, Bernard, but thank you for the sharing. Just Bernard's point was, just for anybody online, there's lots of kind of really good things that are happening across the services, and it's really difficult to share that.
Yeah.
So actually, how can we find a way and a mechanism to do that? And Sean's going to answer us now, which is delightful.
No pressure. SharePoint's a really good example. I give a really good example for that, Bernard. So most people will know we developed an autism strategy a few years ago. And as part of that, the first thing we did was have a look to see what we have where. and that was all manually done. So we had to try and we had to manually figure out who literally used our services that was autistic, and then where they were. We then had to figure out what the models of service looked like, what they were based on. Then we had to do a bit of an evaluation. So were they all really good services? Were they, and are those models being kept up to date? Because what we sometimes find is we have a model of service that's set up, and then 20 years later, we're still working off the same model of service. And that might be okay, but we need to figure. So it's a really valid point. It's not something that we are, like, we do look at it, so in that case, we looked at it like really specifically to focus on it, and the learning then was taken, that was shared as part of the, as part of the strategy document. But then we also looked to see how we could spread that learning out, and then we looked at how we could share it across. So that's still a work in progress, and that's taken a few years. So I suspect if we were to do that across a number of different models, but it's absolutely something that we should and would like to do. And I think SharePoint is one part of that, where we could hold some of that information. And then obviously it's about keeping it up to date. But then there's more I think we can do around sharing learning in person. And again, that can be online. It can be something like this where we can bring different models, talk about them. So we probably underutilized some of our forums for that. But definitely spoke to.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for that, Shona. I think AI is going to be a big feature, or I would say digital, probably a big feature in our next strategy. And thinking about, I'm sitting here with a piece of paper, but I'm really sitting here with my phone, that way. So which way do we go? Hopefully in 6 years' time, we have none of this anymore, and it's all this, would actually to enable us better, give us better value in terms of what we're doing, no matter what it is, what we're doing. So that we can still have that person-to-person contact without being worried about this paper. Where's the bit of paper that I had today? There is a very specific one in relation also to Irish Sign Language, and there's currently nothing on SharePoint in relation to it. Is it something that we can do? For example, guidance to hedge book interpreters, ISL, alphabet resources, International Week of the Deaf being formally recognised. There's no policies in ISL format, training videos, and I'll come to the final question now in 2 seconds. So absolutely, look, totally open to it. And there's two things that we should be doing with all of our policies, making sure they're accessible to everybody. And then secondly, in that accessible to everybody, we need to make sure that we have plain English as well around that. And do you want to talk about policy?
I was going to say,
we have just
talk about policy and policies on that work. Can I also just say that the West are leading the way in relation to sign language, and have been for a number of years here. So I have to give you full credit on that, and have probably
policy advisor.
What's that?
there is one. I was going to say there was one.
No, there was.
Yeah.
But it is. So we are looking at our policies more broadly. Like again, back to that efficiency piece. We've loads of policies out there, and they're all necessary. We don't do any policy for the sake of it. Some of them are a little bit unwieldy, to put it mildly. And we expect that people read them, understand them, and use them, and know where they are. So we are looking at a variety of ways to make that easier for people. But in the first instance, we're looking at, and we've piloted this with some of our HIPAA policies recently. For every policy we've developed, there's an easy read version, a plain English version. And we've also looked at easy read versions for some of those. And then obviously in terms of ISL, we also need to bring that in. But also, interestingly, another area for AI, because there are some systems out there currently that will translate your policy quite quickly. So for a staff member on the ground who's trying to figure out, I don't know, how, something to do with safeguarding or medication or something like that, it can translate that quite quickly. Because the other thing is that we also have people for whom English is not their first language. And again, we've got these unwieldy policies that we need people to. So we know we need to do better on this one, and we're certainly working our way towards that. And there's a few options for us that we're looking at. So
yeah, and I know before COVID there was a lot, or sorry, not before COVID, before the hacking, there was a lot of the ISL videos on how to book, and actually Joan had actually done a bulk of that work to get it up there, and with the communication teams to get the videos up. It was fantastic. So it might be just somewhere there to bring back. in terms of that question.
Joe may still have them.
We, the communications
yeah.
team have them anyway.
You have them. So absolutely, look, it's definitely something we'll look at, and we always believe in reuse. Reuse, copy, borrow from others is what I say, rather than having to start from scratch on everything.
And that's great to hear about the plain English, because that was something else I think that was proven during the time of COVID, how fast we need to adapt, how straightforward in plain English. I think everyone just really appreciated it. So to hear that potentially a return to there to be more accessible for everyone, the staff included, would be fantastic.
So just to share, core, we have core HR or people XD that everybody uses for pay slips, for asking questions into HR, and we're actually changing the interface. So what you see in terms of your user in a couple of weeks' time. So it's going to be a little bit nicer. I still say it's still people XD, so it's never going to be absolutely amazing. But there is a facility that is going to be coming shortly in relation to it, which is going to blend the policy and the AI question. So while we have those unwieldy policies that may be in it, so for example, maternity leave, what is my entitlement? We will be able to type in the maternity leave, what is my entitlement? And then potentially hopefully it'll work out and come out and bring out that part of the policy rather than you having to go through it. So again, we're kind of 8 weeks. The guys now, if any of my team is on listening, they'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe you said it out loud. But look, we've been working really closely with the IT team. It's in that safe environment because it's within our core system. It's not out anywhere else. So it's only what our own system, within their own system. But I think it'd be really helpful. So so where we can make progress and things like that, we absolutely will. As I said on that question, there was, and this has come in twice to me, and I'm saying to us SLT, and I'll pass to any of the Ask SLT members if they want to answer, about salaries, and salaries being lower than other service providers.
It sounds like HR and accounting.
I've been joking with them before, so I'll take it. There's absolutely no problem with that. So, guys, everybody in the room and everybody online knows in terms of we've had great progress in terms of WRC implementation. And I know everybody is absolutely is grateful, but also it's real progress. And in fairness, it's long before I started that people across the organisation were actually working towards achieving this. So one of the things that people wanted to achieve was pay parity with the HSC. And what we've gotten to is close to there, which is we have got alignment now to any public sector agreement, which means that we will always have increases coming to us in line with public sector agreement. And that's really, really positive. What it hasn't addressed as yet is the underlying starting point for all organisations in Section 39. So for some organisations, they may have been starting 10% behind HSE. For other organisations, it could have been 20%. For some, it could have been 4%. And we're all still at the same starting point as we were. So there's still one part that the WRC implementation group, and again, Rehab is still part of that WRC implementation group. And actually, they're meeting again next week. And the implementation group is next looking at low pay within the sector. So while it mightn't solve everything, the big thing is that we're trying to do is pull together the data across the Section 39, Section 56, and Section 10s to understand what is the low pay within the sector, and then hopefully that out of that implementation group, we will make some recommendations around that to move forward. I cannot tell you what that means, what that's going to result in, but what I can say is the WRC implementation group hasn't stopped. The union and the government agencies are still part of that conversation. Does it mean that we're going to close every gap through that group? No, I would expect not. But if we can fundamentally address where low pay is across the sector, that will make significant progress. And then once that progress is made, I think then we move on to the next piece. But it's really about keeping the focus on it and making sure that we continue on. Okay, so just to share again in the room, and like one of the things that we have seen, for because of the implementation of WRC last year, like attrition, and hopefully some of the other things that we're talking about here that we're doing, attrition across the organisation has fallen significantly, and that's really, really positive. You know, so we're now down at just under 11% attrition, and probably when I was talking to you about 12 months ago in this room, we were talking about 17%. So, you know, you can see real tangible differences. Now we'd love to get I'd love to get it down into the single digits, and that's absolutely our aim. And really important that people can see, as I said, around having a successful career, professional, those kind of things. So it's an important one that we would continue to address. Okay. One other question, which is a quick one, that came in, was around pensions and our employee pension contributions now paid and up to date. Yes. So that was a quick one, so I can do that one fairly fast. Okay. Shona, might ask you this one around creating a rehab specific community notice board. Did you see that one?
I did see that one.
Yeah.
And it actually came in from someone in Galway as well. Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting one. And again, I think the question was around like a shared notice board, you know, kind of locally and regionally, where everyone can be aware of different events, different things going on. So I wholeheartedly would support that. I suppose I'm not entirely sure what the best format would be for that. Again, it could be something that the likes of SharePoint would support, but it also might need something locally then to kind of back that up then as well, in terms of kind of where people have access to, so local notice boards, and maybe it's something that once every, I don't know, month, every quarter, you know, it can be updated and then people can put out a new notice board. So yeah, that's a really good idea, and probably, you know, brings the connection back. I mean, I think the services, particularly here, but I know we've got people online as well, are pretty well connected in this kind of local area. We've lots of services around the country that geographically aren't very close, and you know, so I think we need to be thinking about how we can help people to connect. And that's definitely a post-COVID thing, where there was a bit more disconnection, I think.
Yeah.
So a really good idea. We
Yeah.
have to think about, I suppose, how we might do that.
So, and I know I was talking to Adele O'Connell, who's our head of communications, actually earlier this week, and we were talking about actually this piece around how would you create those community forums. And she was like absolutely totally open to doing that, but it's one of those challenges, and that if you have multiple sites and things like that, how do you not overload as well as So that's the big thing we need to always balance.
I would also say, because I think the suggestion on the question was that it would be coordinated by communications. So again, all of that's open to all possibility. You probably also need someone at a regional level to also kind of be that coordinate. But like that can rotate, that can, you know, it's easy enough to come up with solutions to that. So yeah, I'm a big fan of kind of piloting things.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a really good example of something that could be piloted somewhere, and we can see then what works and what might have to be tweaked before trying to roll it out then.
Yeah, great. There's a question here in online which asks, could you advise, are there any planned networking opportunities for instructors / staff to share best practice and tools they used and have available? Yeah. So actually I was in one of the services earlier on today with Louise, and we were actually talking to one of the team leaders around these opportunities to share. And recently Q&G, so Quality and Governance, have set up a team leader forum, which was and great opportunity for team leaders in rehab care across nationally, as Kevin pointed out, to come together. But it's probably a lot of focus was on regulation, which is absolutely the right way it should be. But actually, because there's an opportunity from that to actually build your network locally as well. So maybe there's a bit of blend between these two things of the community, the local regional network, not needing always to be through our hierarchy, and that it's sometimes that it's just coming together in similar roles to share what we're doing and share that best practice. and then to give some sort of mechanism, whether it's SharePoint or a regional hub, that you can share these things on. So I think there's opportunities in terms of coming together and those things. Did you want to?
No, again, for me, our focus is always around, I suppose, best practice, innovation, how we share that. So I think we'll certainly support with a number of kind of formal, I suppose, opportunities to do that. But I do agree with the local connection. But again, I would really like to see more. So one of the things we focused on for the last kind of year are getting structures in place around quality improvement. And we've lots of, at the moment, Q&G have about 8 different projects going on. So we want to find a way to share some of that towards the end of the year. They're all being done in collaboration with operational teams. But I know that there's so much more going on across services on the ground that possibly doesn't find its way up either that we'd like. So if we can help connect some of that, we absolutely will. But again, it might just be a few conversations between ourselves and operational teams to figure out how we can connect those. But we certainly support in whatever way we can.
Yeah, brilliant.
So
Yeah, fair
in
enough.
terms of connections, just one thing, suggestion, is that when new people start, or even because we're very fortunate that a lot of people transition into posts within the organisation, which is brilliant, but to support them in terms of like having a little network of people that start at the same time, or managers that are, moving from supervisor up to manager post or whatever. Just there's that little bit of support. So kind of, there's a little bit of a gap, I think, but I'm not sure. Just to be able to have a little network of support, if you like, even if that involves like to other services, so you get a real sense of what we're about with the organisation as well. In different parts of the world, it's in different parts of the country, because it can be very different in different parts of the country.
No, I'd have heard it come up a few times, and it's some kind of a combination of, as part of people's induction, but it's almost a little bit like a buddy system or a mentoring system or some combination of that. That I think probably.
So there's probably a couple of things which were to try and build those networks. So one of the things is, and I like to say, on our business plan this year, we're currently looking at induction. We're nearly at the stage of rolling out a new form of induction, which again, new people into the organisation, bringing them together, online a lot, because of our challenges always when we try and pull people together and physically we don't get people. So, but if we can create connections. And I remember even starting in organisations, and some of my best mates all the way through an organisation were the ones I met on induction. And it didn't matter about whether they were hugely senior or I was very junior, but actually they're the ones that you stayed in touch with all through your life, and still am, So I think you're right. Creating those connections beyond your immediate team and doing it through an induction is really, really important. So we'll try and do that. The other thing, as Kevin just mentioned, like we bring our wider leadership team together as well. So anybody who's direct reports of any SLT members, and our regional managers, all get invited on a regular, about 4 times a year, and they come together to network, to talk, to share. That's what we do, and it's really about focusing on how we're delivering, what are the things that we want to do to change, how can we be better, how can we improve, how can we learn from each other, so really that kind of focus. So again, there's another nice network of people. And same way, we have a management development program, which we started rolling out last year. No, the year before, at the end of 2024, we started rolling that out. We put about 70 managers through last year. We're going to be doing again for this year. And again, new managers in particular, really good opportunity for them to actually network with other managers, and learn from them. And that's a really, really important one. But again, open to suggestions, Verna, or anybody else, if there's other things that we can do to create connections for people, because that's what we do. We all want to be connected. That's really important. So open to anything.
Geo and the team had arranged the international cafe.
Good point.
A lot of
Cafe,
international employees that came over on the visa.
Yeah. So Geo, who's part of the people and culture team, when we did the big recruitment for international employees, and we had 50 individuals join, So to get everybody connected to each other, because a lot of them were placed in different parts, and I've met a number of of individuals who were part of that original recruitment campaign today. But actually just to connect them in this kind of a virtual cafe, just so they'd have the opportunity to share their learnings, share their experience. And actually, we actually won an award at the Irish Healthcare Awards, which is brilliant around it. But actually, the important thing was it was an opportunity for everybody to connect. And again, a lot of them were going to having the same experience. So it was a really, really good and nice little network to do that in. Okay. There's one other one here that's here online. Is there any other questions in the room? I have a really big question as this over here. So there's often an ask, is it an option for staff on the SABE course? I don't know that. Nationally, to have a venue to share best practice. Do you know what that is? I don't know what that is either. Rita's looking at me, so just I think maybe just I'd say about a venue to share best practice. As part of we definitely find that from a training perspective anyway, that how do we engage and bring our employees together? We don't have a training room as such for employees. So actually we took the opportunity with College East, which is Ballyfermot. There was an opportunity for a couple of rooms upstairs, and one of those we're looking to utilise that for employee training. So, and it won't be like the idea is it's not going to be idle, lads. So there isn't any employee training going on. It can be used for something else, but it would be a resource for us as employees to use. And whether this is for networking or community of practice or anything like that, absolutely that learning environment to try and encourage them.
I also wonder if this kind of format, I don't know, we'll see afterwards how people feedback, but if that is also helpful, because the sharing the best practice comes up quite a lot. And again, it is something we absolutely want to look at, but it is trying to get that balance of, and I always think it's really important for people to be in a room where they can as well, but we have to balance that with also people need to be in services and centres, and you know, there's a cost to travel as well, all those things. So but I would wonder if this format where it, and this doesn't require like a big room, it's a relatively small room, you can have a smaller group of people, but you can also have people link in then online, and if we can do so, I think we can. I'll certainly take the best practice kind of pieces away and see what we can at least try. And again, with everything, we'll try it, and if it doesn't work, we'll try something else.
Yeah, brilliant. So it really sounds like there's a real strong desire across for people to share. You know, so connect and share, and it's just about what mechanisms can we find to do that that's most efficient for people, but also they get the best out. That's the two things, trying to get those balance. Okay, I have a big question. So anyone in the audience can answer this one too if you want to. What, in your opinion, will define a successful disability training organisation in Ireland over the next 5 to 10 years? Big question. We've got a few. Start with this one. When we talk about disability training, there are a lot of pieces to that, and I think there isn't a one size fits all. And I think our challenge is going to be being really clear about what we're good at as an organisation and how we can support people and where our skill sets lie, but also being flexible enough to recognise the change in landscape externally. So people will have again seen the furore over the past kind of week around the SNAs in school and what inclusive education means. And so it's bringing to the fore, there's a similar conversation going on in the UK at the moment. It's bringing to the fore, what do we talk about when we talk about inclusion? What does that mean? And there's a lot of lip service paid to that. And so there's a few pieces for me. There will be, I think, more emphasis placed on that broader inclusion piece. And we have to be part of that somehow. But there is also a piece for us that we know we're really good at, and that's about offering really safe spaces for people where we have very specific skill sets and we can support people as well. So I don't think there'll be one really, you know, this is what disability training looks like. I think it'll be a combination of things, and I think we have roles to play in each of those areas. So certainly the likes of NLN
I think we have, there's a role for us in mainstream universities and, further training. But I also think there's still a role for us where we have specialist training and support for people in safe environments where people either aren't quite ready for the broader kind of more mainstream, or that's not what they need and they need something more specific. And then I think was that there's that more flexible piece about we do lots of outreach work, and so I think it'll be a combination of all of that. I just think we need to be careful within that we're really clear about what we're good at, what we can offer, and we don't try and split ourselves into 100 pieces trying to do everything. So I don't think there's a straightforward answer to that one, but it's quite a big question. So
I did say it was a big question.
and that's also just my opinion. But I think there's a lot more to it.
And I'd also say, like, from an enterprise lens on it too, as well, there's a big piece there about us integrating better between NLM and enterprises, so that we have that market knowledge, so to speak, in enterprises about what the workplace needs and what the marketplace needs, and integrating that more into the NLM piece as well, so that we're kind of we're unusual that way, that we have that language, so we should really be using it as best we can to deliver to what people who are in training, introduce training as well. But it's huge, and there's an environment that's changing all the time. Yes.
So just with regards to kind of this future planning during 5 to 10 years in training and sports for service users and staff, like I don't know, like, I know it often comes down to vulgarity, money and funding, but like for like a wider kind of MDT multidisciplinary team kind of that's accessible to like all regions, I suppose. Like I said, John, we depend heavily on, let's say, here regionally on outsourced members, like I said, from occupational therapy kind of perspective, and also kind of from neuropsychology as well. We without those, we're not able to run the services. Like, so I suppose it's kind of like to better serve the people that we care for and support. I suppose it's hopefully be MDT led as well as of yourselves. I suppose would that be something kind of in future that
I'm trying to step myself coming off the chair. Absolutely, Simon. So this has been absolutely one of my areas of focus over the last while. So it was in our last strategy, and we made some moves. So there's a couple of things. There's a couple of moving pieces, I suppose. We absolutely want, like, to develop, especially specialist services, so especially brain injury services. You can't provide those services without specialist multidisciplinary support. So that's the first. You can't do that. But then there's the financial piece of, who pays for that, and do we have enough people, do we support enough people to warrant, X amount of MDT professionals. However, it's something that we want to grow out. So we have a large team of psychologists, and we have a large team of behaviour therapists. We would like to grow out other MDT roles. So we have OTs starting to come on board over the last while. It is being done on a regional basis currently, so it's wherever we can get bits of funding, and then we try and kind of build that then over time. And likewise, speech and language therapy is the other piece. And again, as we look to specialist services, we do need to look at how we consolidate that over time, but with the funding piece. So at the moment, it's still kind of those pieces and pockets of funding, but we would like to grow it out. The other side of that argument is that there is an onus on the HSE to provide some of these services, and that's the other side of it. If we're trying to find kind of funding here and there to provide a service that should be essentially provided by the HSE, we'll probably do the disservice to somebody as well along the way. So we just have to be really clear about. So one of the things we've also been looking at over the past summer, when a referral comes in now for a psychologist or a BT, we check to see, well, they have to have made a referral to the HSE first. So we can see, is there a gap? There is no HSE personnel there, or there's a waiting list of 17 years, and therefore that's why. So then that gives us ammunition to a point, but it gives us something really tangible to then take to the HSE to say, well, that's not there. The other side of it is that, I sat in a HSE group last year, and they were looking at MDT supports and day services. And I mean, to say it was a drop in the ocean, I mean, they were talking about a really small amount of money for all the people. And as soon as the conversation started, it was immediately it's the wrong way of doing it, I suppose, because you have to look at people holistically. And we have some people who might be in a residential service and a day service, and because they're in residential, they'd be disqualified from being able to access this, you know. So that. But I suppose on a positive note, the HSE we're looking to try and red circle funding for NDT supports in day services. So it's a bit of a mixed picture from an organisational perspective. We would really want to develop that function, that more and more, and develop those supports more. But it's trying to find the best model funding for it.
I've just said we're probably naturally coming to the end. Shortly, I have two questions, just that they're not as big as that, but they are as complex. So yeah, well, one of them is about the constant staff shortages that we have and what we're doing to address them. And that, you know, it's not just with me as being the director, and just to say is we in People and Culture can't do this without everybody else. So look, we're aware, obviously, the challenges that we've had in terms of getting, but also getting people to stay. One of the things I say to my SLT colleagues all the time is actually we don't have any problem recruiting people. We recruited 520 people last year. We recruited 910 people the year before. What is our problem is they're not staying with us. And that's the bit that we need to get right. We need to get retention better rather than recruitment. And now, sorry, saying on that is if anybody's sitting here with a vacancy, we want to get to that closed off as quickly as we possibly can. So of course the team are always looking at efficiencies and changes. And I know they were recently down with the Rehab Care regional management team talking about different things that they're doing, and they do the same within National Learning Network. So it's not that we're not improving, of course we will. But on the other side of it, we do have to flip to the retention conversation. So how are we keeping people here? How are we showing that we value them? How are we showing that we recognise them? You know, how are we showing them that they can have a successful career? Really, really important questions that we need to address. And my final question, if there's no other questions that are coming forward, just around career development. So what support and development opportunities are available within the organisation? And I might take this to start, and then Shona, you might come in as well. Look, in the engagement survey, which I mentioned, we're strong on training. We're not great on development. Okay, so, and we need to do more on career progression, which I mentioned earlier on. So development and career progression are really, really important to us, and that having that successful career. So I've mentioned a couple of things that we're already doing around management development training, better induction. We're also building out what I'm calling a framework, but it's essentially, it's just somebody who's not on mute. So do you want to go on mute? Rosie, you might be able to do that for them.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So how to have a successful career, but also the pathways if you want to need to create. Sorry, thanks. I don't think you can do it. Rosie, can you do that? Yeah, brilliant. They relied now. Thanks. Did you manage it? Yeah. So just to check that you can still hear me online. Yeah. So again.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Great, thanks, Rosie. Learning pathways are one thing, so if I want to build a capability, let's say my ambition is to become a person in charge, actually what are the roles that I should have, but also what's the skills and capabilities I need to build, and what's the pathway for doing that? And we have to get better at showing that. And that's, again, is another piece that we're looking at building out, so we'll back to talk to you about that.
I found this one to be a really interesting one in the survey because from my perspective, there have never been more pathways built in the organisation than there ever were. So I joined 23 years ago and I came in as a support worker, and I went from a support worker to a local service manager, to regional manager, to head of community support into this role over those years. And within that time, I did a couple of master's degrees and I did a number of postgraduate diplomas, all of which was supported by the organisation. But as well as that, and as to your point earlier, Berna, I had a lot of really strong mentors along the way that also helped to shape my, I suppose, my own kind of growth and education. So it's interesting to me now when I look across the organisation and just see how big we are and all of the roles that are there for people. So I think it is that piece around maybe us being clearer about what is available and what you need to do to be able to move into it. When I started off, I didn't know that I was going to become a brain injury specialist over the course of 20 years. And I kind of fell into things along the way, but I grew into roles. And I also wouldn't have kind of necessarily thought that I'd be in this role in, 23 years later. So, but there's lots of opportunity in the organisation. So we just need to be better in trying to help people navigate different pathways, and even to think about things outside of your area and across the organisation. So we've lots of different directorates and departments and loads of different, and it's been really nice to see over the last number of years lots of movement between NLN and care as well. And actually, that wouldn't have been have happened as much kind of in previous years. So lots of opportunity there, but just if we can make the pathways maybe more explicit for people.
Sorry, just in regards to retention, people kind of takes soon there's exit interviews being done.
Absolutely.
Why do they leave?
So, well, people leave for different reasons. Sorry, the question in the room was just exit interviews. Do we do them, and what are they telling us? So, exit interviews, again, as I said, people would leave for different reasons. One of the things we would have found last year would have been that people were leaving. The primary driver was salary. That was the primary driver. Now it's changed and people are leaving for different reasons, but it can be career progression. It can also be that they don't feel supported by their manager or indeed their area. Or again, that looking for a different flexibility. Work-life balance would be one of those key things that's going out.
We know as an organisation should do what divisions are because it's Rehab Group is a big organisation.
Mm-hmm.
So we've different arms and different instances. So from the point of view of an language, like what could we say? Or we have here or enterprise, but where are we seeing the attrition?
So traditionally, so where is the attrition is the question. So traditionally, rehab care has had a higher attrition than National Learning Network or indeed enterprises. And the reason being for that is because of that, in particular, the pay structures within rehab care. So that is probably still where we see the highest level of attrition. In National Learning Network, we probably see more what I'd call is natural attrition. Mm-hmm. So there is people with longer service who potentially are retiring now. So there's a natural attrition rather than a voluntary attrition piece. And that is most definitely something that we'll be looking at in terms of the demographics of our organisation and what's that going to mean for us over the next 5 years. One of the things we know we want to do is to make sure that we're getting in a lot of early careers people and we're giving them those successful careers. Early careers. So individuals who may just have left university, what's the pathway for them?
So let's just pick up on the enterprise piece too as well. The attrition is probably similar to the NLN. It's just the stage we were at. I suppose the started whatever 30 odd years ago. So we're at the stage now. So most of the attrition now is actually people leaving the organisation to retire.
Guys, just to say thank you very much to everybody online and to everybody here. We may have a few questions that we mightn't have covered off completely, and if there is anything that anybody wants, please just send them into that. I'm going to say the email that was on the picture. I can't remember now what it was, but send it in and absolutely we will respond. If the quality of this recording is good enough, we will put it on the website. We don't know what it's going to sound like because it's a webinar with people in the room. But we absolutely make it the transcript of it available as well for anybody. Thanks a million. We're still here. So if anybody in the room wants to ask us anything, but anyone who's online, thanks a million for joining us. We won't hold you any longer because I know it's hard to listen in particular when you're online, but I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.